So good morning, good evening. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we are going to be speaking first with April. She's from our Morcare office, and she's going to be walking us through your health plan and benefits. And then after that, we have Jill here, who's from our counseling and accessibility services, and she's going to go over some of the extra supports we do offer for our students on campus. So April, I've made you co-host, and you are all set if you'd like to start.
Perfect. So I will just share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this now. So like Crystal said, I am the on-campus Morcare representative. So Morcare is your student insurance plan. So I'm going to assume just in talking that everyone is a May start student. So everything I'm referencing is in terms of your May start. So the best place to go for all your information about your student health plan is morcare.ca. So if you go, it'll look like this website, and then you can just choose your school. And then you can see all of the details of the plan here. So as long as you're a full-time student in May, your policy would begin May 1st. So I'll just go over briefly kind of the different parts of the plan. So on the right-hand side here, you can see all the colored tabs. So International OHIP Alternative is the medical portion of your plan. So that's saying things like doctors, if you have an emergency and have to go to the hospital, if you need blood work, tests, things like that, that all falls under your International OHIP Alternative coverage. So you can see the coverage is $1 million for your lifetime. So that's for any new medical condition or illness. So if you arrive in Canada, you get sick, something happens, you are covered to go to any doctor in Ontario. The main campus here in London has a clinic on campus that will direct bill your insurance. If you go off campus, you might have to pay for the visit and then submit a claim to be reimbursed, which I can talk about later. So yeah, that covers emergency room, doctors and physicians, treatment of illness, injury, surgery, and doctor's visits. You also have obstetrical and maternity care up to $25,000. That's if you become pregnant after the start of your policy. For psychiatric hospitalization, it's a maximum of $50,000. Self-inflicted injuries, it's a maximum of $10,000. Oncology treatment, a maximum of $25,000. Repatriation, so if you are so sick that the only option is to return you home, or something happens and you unfortunately pass away, there is coverage to return you home to your family. So this is just like a brief overview of what the coverage entails. Everything is very case specific. So because this is recorded, I'm not going to go into specifics. Like if you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out after, but I can't really go into specifics about case by case, just because we don't want your personal information recorded. So the other coverage areas you have are prescription drugs. So it's 80% coverage up to $5,000 a year for most prescription drugs and medications. That also includes $150 for preventative vaccines and $200 for contraceptives and prescription birth control. For your dental coverage, you have a maximum of $750 per year, and different services are covered at different amounts. So for dental coverage, what we always recommend is getting a quote done first. So your dental clinic can do a general exam, tell you what services are needed, and then you can get that quoted so you know exactly what would be covered under the plan. You also have extended health. So that's for things like everyone's favorite is massage therapy. Also chiropractic, nutritionist, osteopath, you can see all of them here. So you have a maximum of $500 for those services. RMT, that's a registered massage therapist, and orthotherapy, you have a combined $500 for those services. You also have physiotherapy and physical rehabilitation therapists for $500, and psychologist, social worker, and psychoanalyst up to $1,000. Also emergency taxi. So if you are having an emergency, it's not quite, you need to call an ambulance, but you need to get to the hospital. You have $50 towards a taxi to get you to the hospital. Also, you do have some ambulance coverage. So you have $100 per year for an ambulance in the event of an emergency. If you need to call an ambulance, you would have some coverage for that. Just so you're aware, an ambulance in Ontario is about $240 to $260. So you would have to pay some of that out of pocket. You also have vision coverage. So $80 for an eye exam every 24 months and $150 for glasses every 24 months. You also have accident benefits. So in the event of an accident, you have all of this in addition to your other coverage. You also have travel. So if you're in Canada, but then traveling out of province or out of country, you have up to 5 million for injury, emergency injury or sickness. This does not include your home country. So it's anywhere in the world except your home country. And then also you have the student wellness program. So this is called We Connect. So it is a on-demand kind of quick service to access mental health support, student life balance, personal growth and development. It's available 24/7 via an app you can download. You would just follow this link here. So everything I'm talking about, you guys won't be able to access quite yet. Your policy starts May 1st. So you will not be able to access the Dialogue app or your student medical card until about a week or two into May. Okay. You also do have the enhanced coverage here. So that's early arrival. So your policy, like I said, starts May 1st. You would have coverage for medical only 30 days prior to that. So we assume you're going to arrive in Canada before May 1st. If something happens, you need to visit a doctor, you would have coverage for 30 days prior to May 1st. That does not include your prescription drugs, dental, or extended health. Okay. So I'll move on to the Your Space tab here in the top right. This is where you will get your card. So if you scroll down a bit, you can see student medical card. So like I said, you guys can't get it quite yet. Mid-May, you will be able to download your card. So you would put in your date of birth, your student number, and hit the green button, and it'll generate a digital card for you. You do not get physical ones. If you'd like, you can print it or just take a screenshot on your phone, and that works at most places. Okay, you can also see some discount network options. So this is where I recommend people go to look for providers for like dental, pharmacists, things like that, because some of these offer additional discounts to students on top of your insurance benefits. Okay. You also have some coupons. So Rexall is a pharmacy here. Specsavers and Billy Nelson are both vision centers. You can also see some frequently asked questions on this website. And then this is how you can get in touch with us as well. So this is our phone number. You can fill out this form to email us, or the best way I always recommend students is to use the live chat feature in the bottom right corner here. You would just click that, fill out your information, and you can get talking to one of us within a minute or two. So if you're talking to an agent named April, you're talking to me anyways. Also, I'm on campus Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 in J1004. So you guys are welcome to stop by anytime, and I can answer your questions in person as well. So that's just a really brief overview. Like I said, the website's the best place to find all your information. And then if there's something you can't find or you have additional questions, use live chat and reach out to us. All right, so I'm just going to stop sharing, and if anyone has any questions now.
Then you might find that you don't necessarily have questions until you get here and you're going to use the plan or you're going to the doctor's office and stuff. But we do really recommend using the online services to access sort of what doctor's office are covered, where might you go for an x-ray. The live chat features are really, really helpful as well, as April noted, just to kind of help you with some guidance as to what the next steps might be. And here we do have a 3-pronged healthcare system. So you're not necessarily going to go to the hospital for something minor. So that they can also help you with sort of distinguishing what level of care you need. So. And we will.
Our support is open 8 a.m. till midnight, Monday to Friday. So like the live chats, they're longer than I'm on campus. So that's why it's another good resource.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you, April. And we will send out a copy of this recording to everybody as well, so that you will also have this to go back to, but it's all right off of the website. So thank you for joining us, April. I will turn it over to Jill. Jill's going to talk to us about our counseling and accessibility services. And Jill, I have made you co-host, so you should be able to view that and share your screen.
Are folks able to see my screen?
Yeah. I can,
Excellent.
so I would think I can.
Fabulous. Little glitches here and there. Thanks for your patience. I appreciate that. So yes, good morning and good evening, everybody. My name is Jill Villanueva, and I am one of the personal counselors here at Fanshawe College in the Counseling and Accessibility Services Office. So I'm just going to do a review of what we do in our department. So just to say that at all of our campuses, we offer both personal counseling and accessibility services counseling. And there's a nice little picture of Fanshawe College. When you get here, that's a little picture from the entrance to the college at main campus. It's looking very bright and springy, and that's what it should be when you get here. Not quite so much right now, but we're getting there. Soon we'll have daffodils and tulips. Okay, in terms of our counseling services, what it's important for you to know is that all of our counseling services are free. So there's no charge that's for this service. As well, counseling is confidential. Okay. And a lot of students are sometimes concerned that as counselors, we're going to share information with professors, with IRCC or anybody else, just to let you know that personal health information is protected. If a student wants for information to be shared, or if we're needing to put accommodations and supports in place, we will seek out the student's permission to be able to share personal information. So counseling is free, it's confidential, it's professional. We're all professionally trained counselors. In terms of booking appointments, we can either book appointments that are a week or two out, whatever. Our wait list is actually quite short right now. We generally don't have students waiting more than about a week, 2 weeks max. We also have a same-day service for students who are perhaps going through a crisis situation, needing to connect with a counselor on an urgent basis. The best way to make appointments, either call that phone number that's there or to schedule an appointment, or students can come into our office, which is on the second floor of F building at F 2010, and speak to our front desk staff there. There's a little confidential space. Students can come in and make an appointment. Our hours are Monday to Thursday, 8:30 to 7:30, and then Fridays, 8:30 to 4 p.m. Just to let you know that for the summer hours, our hours are going to be going back to 8:30 to 4:30. We tend to be not quite as busy in spring and summer. Come the fall, we'll be going back to the 8:30 to 7:30 time. For the personal counseling piece, we see students for a broad range of issues. A significant one is adjusting to a new environment, homesickness. It's a big thing to come to Canada, leaving everything that's familiar behind you, your resources, your families, your supports, everything that you knew and was familiar. It's a big adjustment to come to a new environment. So sometimes it's a struggle. And so we certainly talk to students who are sort of in the process of adjusting to this new environment. We see students for anxiety management. Being in school can be very stressful, can be very anxiety provoking. We see students who have maybe some relationship or family concerns and want to sort of work through some of those. Students dealing with grief and loss, questions around sexuality, depression as well, and addiction. So that's just a few types of topics for which we would see students for personal counseling. We also have community resources in London. And so I've listed there some 24/7 services. So there's one that's called Good to Talk, and that's for post-secondary students in Ontario. And if you've got a concern, question, something's weighing on you and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you want to be able to reach out and talk to somebody, that's one service right there. We also have what we call a reach out line, also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a couple of different phone numbers to be able to get there. And for that same reach out service, there's an actual physical location, which is Huron Street, not too far from main campus. And if students go there, once again, 3 o'clock in the morning, needing to connect with somebody, there are counselors there who can provide some in-person support. We also offer accessibility services counseling. And so accessibility services counseling are for students who may have a disability. And there's, once again, just as there are a broad range of types of issues for which we would see a student for personal counseling, there are broad different types of disabilities that we could provide some accessibility services counseling for. Some of those include things like an acquired brain injury, concussion, autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, chronic illness. There could be some chronic condition, medical condition, students who may be struggling with hearing. So they may be deafened or hard of hearing. There may be a learning disability that's operative. So processing information, low vision, blindness, psychiatric mental health. So anxiety, depression, bipolar, psychosis, mobility issues, functional issues, or other types of issues, perhaps involving communication. What you see here is kind of a breakdown in terms of the percentages of total number of students who register with accessibility services. And what you'll see there is that oftentimes the number one group of students that we're dealing with are students dealing with what we call invisible disabilities. So it's not outwardly obvious that a student has a disability or has a struggle that they're dealing with. And you see there that mental health is at around 28%. The largest number of students that we're providing disability services, counseling, and supports to. As well, another invisible disability is a learning disability. And we see that sitting at around 19%. The broad category of other is at 19%, and ADHD, that attention deficit struggle, is sitting at 17%. So once again, that's an invisible disability, right? So we know that sometimes there can be stigma around accessing supports due to a psychiatric issue, a mental health issue, a learning issue, but just wanting to reinforce that that's the number one group of students that we're seeing and that we're providing support to. So we're very happy to meet with any student who has any of those concerns, to explore with them what their needs are, and to build some supports for them. When I talk about supports, some of those supports are accommodations. So once again, we provide the personal counseling piece for students who may need some support around how do I manage my anxiety? How do I manage my mental health concern? What are some strategies that I can put in place and I can learn so I can get through the term, get through my schooling and flourish and succeed? So that's the one piece. The other piece around accommodations, right? So sometimes somebody who's struggling with a disability might need some extra supports in terms of their academics, right? In order to provide accommodations, we do need to have some documentation supporting that there is a disability in place. So it's just essentially saying, yes, we don't need necessarily concrete information in terms of this is a disability, but we need to have a doctor who has said, yes, there is in fact a disability that's operative, and this is how the student's disability impacts their learning, right? So we have a medical clinic on campus, and sometimes we'll make referrals to students to go to that medical clinic so that they can meet with somebody to talk about what's going on for them, perhaps talk about an assessment for what's happening for them, and then some supportive documentation to say, yes, the student is indeed struggling with a disability. This is how it's impacting them. Right, let's take a look at maybe how we can build some supports. So as you can see, their accommodations are based on documentation. And if we don't have that actual final formal documentation, we can still build some interim accommodations. So while we're waiting for that documentation to come in, we can still put in some accommodations to help the student with managing what's in front of them. In terms of what are accommodations, because we'll often have students say, what exactly do you mean by accommodations? Is that around housing? What is that exactly? And when we use that term, that's really around academic supports. So some examples could be things like extra time for tests and exams, right? Sometimes students would benefit from having a little bit of extra time, particularly if anxiety is a factor, or if there's a learning issue that's playing a part here, having some extra time to write those tests and exams. maybe being able to write tests and exams in a test center. We actually have a test center on campus, and at every campus there is a test center or an area with what we call reduced distractions, where students can write their tests without feeling disrupted or rushed. Note-taking services as well. Sometimes it's difficult for students to pay attention in class and take notes, right? Sometimes that's an additional challenge. So we do have some note-taking services that we could put in place for students who require it and who have a disability. There might be some individual classroom accommodations that are specific to that particular classroom. We also have textbooks in alternate formats. So perhaps reading a textbook is not accessible for students with a disability, so we can help them to get set up with alternate formats. And sometimes specialized furniture, like an ergonomic chair, things like that, or an appropriate sort of table, depending on the nature of the student's disability. How do you register for accessibility services? So the way to do that is you go into Fanshawe online. I believe you'll have another session just looking at using Fanshawe online and using your portal and things like that. You click on the resources menu, and then you click on accessibility online services, and then you'll see a registration form that's there. It used to be called one thing. We've changed it to just a registration form, just to make it really clear, because I think our past language was a little bit confusing for everybody. So we've just got a registration form. So you just press register and you follow your instructions. The sooner that you get your accessibility registration form received, the sooner that you'll be able to connect with our office, right? So what'll happen is you'll get an email bounce back to you saying, thank you so much for filling out the registration form. And your next step is to meet with your accessibility counselor and to begin the process of getting documentation together. So you'll get an email saying, here's your accessibility counselor's name. You'll want to book in to see that person as soon as possible. And what's lovely about that is you'll be able to sit down with your accessibility counselor and talk about what your needs specifically are, right? So it's not like it's a blanket kind of, well, here are your accommodations. It's really around what's going on for you, what's going to support your learning the best. And then your accessibility counselor will build some supports for you just around what's the best thing to support you. We also have accessibility services orientation meetings. So you can come in, meet with our accessibility coordinator, and then she can go over kind of like, here's a broad range of the types of accommodations that could be available to you. And here's the process for getting your documentation. I know it's a lot of information. I don't expect for you to be remembering all of this right now, but just know that there is a process, and I know you'll be able to pull up this recording as well, and you can see some information there about how to register and how to connect with our office. We just want you to stay connected with us, right? We are here for you for whatever concerns that you may have. We really want for this to be a great experience for you, and we want to support your success. So you need to connect with us. You see that there's a phone number there. You see that there's an email address there. So any questions around that, just send an email saying, hey, I'd like to know more about your counseling services, or hey, I'd like to get registered. Not quite sure how, please remind me. And you'll get an email back and some supports around your next steps. So that's kind of a synopsis of counseling and accessibility services. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I will stop.
And as we did know, we did have a little bit of a technical issue with the passcode getting in. So I apologize for those of you that are just joining now. We will send out a full copy of the recording of today's session as well. Was there any questions today for Jill around our counseling and accessibility services team and their supports that they offer? And if you do find that once you receive the recording and you've gone over it and you do have some more questions, you can, as Jill said, reach out and connect with them over many different platforms. And you may not need the services until you're here, and then you realize that there's, some things that you wanted to look into. They have a lot of like sessions and workshops and great options for students. And if there's no formal questions, I will leave the chat open so that those of you, it looks like there's some people hoping to just chat generally and make connections. So thank you, Jill, for joining us today and walking us through your services.
Thanks for the invite.
Right. Okay, so I will stop the recording and let our guest speakers get back to their day. And then I will leave the chat open so that you guys can just chat for a bit with each other. Thank you.